Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night but had no idea why you're exhausted and deep asleep? But all of a sudden you feel like something woke you up, but you aren't sure of what it was. If this has ever happened to you, don't worry, you are not alone. In today's video, you're going to find out the real reason why God wakes you up at night and what it means. But before that, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As the day fades away and the night sky takes over, there's nothing quite as sweet as getting a good night's rest, whether it's the relief of a long day's work or passing out after a night in town. Sleep brings us all a sense of peace. But why would God sometimes interfere and wake us up in the middle of our resting period when He knows this is the only time we have to rest? You see, we live in a spiritual world that is ruled by two major forces, good and evil, and whether we believe it or not, the spirit realm completely overrules the physical realm. But what we often forget is that while we may be fast asleep in our beds, the world continues to turn, and so does the presence of spiritual warfare. Have you ever wondered why most of the wickedness that takes place in the world occurs at night? Did you ever wonder why darkness is often associated with evil? That is because the devil finds nighttime as the best time for him to carry out his mischievous activities and go undetected. In fact, if God were to make us aware of the spiritual things that go on behind the scenes at night, most of us will stay wide awake. We would spend time praying rather than falling asleep. 1 John 5, verse 19 tells us, "And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness." When God wakes you up in the middle of the night, it is because He wants you to pray and counter such evil forces ganged up against you. In Matthew 13, verse 25, the Bible tells us, "But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way." In other words, during our slumbers, the devil is actively working to bring chaos and destruction into our lives. It's to counter this silent but evil agenda that God wakes us up unexpectedly in the night. It's His way of sending you a warning of what's happening in the spiritual realm. You can't see it may seem unexpected and disruptive, but there is a reason for it. Just like the parable of the wheat and tares, He knows your enemy is always prowling and looking for a way in. He's trying to protect you and keep you safe, even when you don't realize it. He understands your vulnerabilities and can see when you are in danger. He watches for the enemy's schemes, ever vigilant and ever present, to make sure no harm befalls you when you are asleep. This is how it works. The devil knows that at night we are most vulnerable while we are asleep. He knows that a sleeping man cannot pray. While he is asleep, he knows a sleeping man cannot read his Bible. He also knows a sleeping man isn't conscious of his surroundings. So at night, when it's dark and the world is asleep, this is when the enemy or the devil chooses to do his work at the same time. This is when God begins to prompt you to wake up and pray, because the best time to catch a thief is when he is in the act of stealing. In fact, at the time God wakes us up to pray at night is when the devil will most likely want to make us feel all the more sleepy. Have you ever wondered why you always feel so much more sleepy when you wake up to pray? Keep in mind that the disciples of Jesus also passed out violently when they woke up to pray in the Garden of Gethsemane right before Jesus was arrested. It's not a coincidence that you feel most sleepy when you need to pray. If you woke up at that exact moment to check your phone or respond to a text, you wouldn't feel so exhausted or sleepy. However, when it comes to prayers, the devil makes sure to attack you with a strong desire for sleep. You can feel his arms surrounding you. With charming but hollow promises of rest, he entices you to stay in bed and tells you that praying won't really change anything. He says you don't need to wake up in the middle of the night to pray. Instead, you should wait until morning to finish your prayers and everything will be okay. However, he is mistaken, because God always awakens you in the middle of the night because he has seen the enemy attacking you and wants you to take control. The devil knows that if you take charge of the situation and pray, you will overpower him, which is why he's sending waves of sleepiness just enough to make you too comfortable to act. These aren't coincidences. Praying can be a powerful spiritual countermeasure that helps you counteract and dismantle whatever plans the enemy has set up against you. He is against you waking up to pray because he knows that prayers have power and that individuals who answer God's call are rewarded with spiritual victory. He also wouldn't want you engaging in any spiritual activity that may thwart his goals. As you start to pray, your voice rises, signifying that your prayers have uncovered his cunning intentions and thwarted his plans. The more drowsy you are, the more effort you should put into your prayers. The truth is, many people find themselves presented with a lot of problems in their day to day lives, but what they often fail to realize is that God might already have woken them up once or twice to pray. He may have even made known to them their troubles in advance through dreams and visions, but they just weren't mindful enough to take action. In Job 40, verse 4, it says, "Once have I spoken, but I will not answer yea twice, but I will proceed no further." This reveals that God speaks to us often, but we just don't pay attention. Don't let ignorance be the downfall of your faith. Obey that prompting to rise at night and pray diligently. Every time you will find yourself victorious over every hidden enemy in ways you could never have imagined. In the Bible, Peter was held captive in prison, awaiting execution the following day. It was during the night that an angel broke into the prison and woke the apostle from his sleep. When Peter noticed the open prison doors, he was naturally intrigued. He didn't know he had been given a herald of his Lord and quickly realized this was his one chance of freedom. He took heed and followed the angel out of the prison, and his obedience resulted in him being set free, avoiding certain death. Most have made excuses claiming they're too tired or they're not feeling like praying, but Peter understood that obeying the Lord is better than comfort. So instead of making excuses and staying in bed, Peter woke up, followed the angel, and was set free. Samuel's life provides another example. When Samuel was a young boy, God called him in the middle of the night while he was sleeping. Samuel answered, "Speak, for your servant is listening," and God opened up a world of wonderful possibilities. Had Samuel chosen to be lazy and sleep instead, he might not have risen to be the great man he was. It's clear from this story that when God wants us to wake up at night and pray, we need to lean into our faith and obey his call. This doesn't mean we should always stay up all night praying, but it means if God prompts us to, we should. It can be tempting to just roll over and go back to sleep when we are awoken at night. But it is important to take these moments seriously and listen to what God may be trying to tell us, as much as it may be tempting to stay in bed and sleep. The importance of following his direction is obvious. You might wonder why God sometimes chooses nighttime instead of the day to give us these promptings. But the truth is, God can prompt you at any time, be it day or night. During the day, we often become too distracted in our activities to both hear God's voice and recognize spiritual dangers. But when we sleep and the devil begins to set up his plan, God can open our eyes to see the truth better than ever before. Even if it is just a few minutes of prayer, it can make a huge difference in our lives and in the spiritual battle being waged against us. But we must not forget that if we refuse to make time for God, we have already lost the battle. It takes time, focus, and commitment, but when you make it a habit of rising up in the stillness of the night to connect with God, unseen spiritual battles can be won. You will be amazed by how much a few moments in the presence of God each day can do for your spirit every time you wake up. Speak to God first, just before you pick up your phone or speak to your friend, because only He alone can guarantee you a safe life mentally, physically, and spiritually. A person who spends an hour at night praying is much more powerful than a man who spends an hour praying during the day. No wonder Jesus spent all night praying most at times, because he understood the power behind prayers. Though often hidden from our eyes, what's coming against us is nothing compared to the powerful and loving plans God has for us when we honor Him and rest in Him. He will watch over us in the night and keep our souls safe and secure. So if you find yourself awoken in the middle of the night, be rest assured that God has something important to tell you. He's just waiting for you to listen. So if you find yourself awoken in the middle of the night, be rest assured that God has something important to tell you. He's just waiting for you to listen. If you love our videos, please feel free to subscribe to our channel.